Hi everyone, it's Eddie. I am so excited to share this painting with you today. This is a painting entitled Noelle. It's by a contemporary artist, Jordan Casteel, who works out of New York City and also teaches painting and studio art at Rutgers University in New Jersey. This painting was recently on display at the New Museum of Contemporary Art in New York City in a solo exhibition that was cut short because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I thought this was a really appropriate painting to look at right now, and also in the context of starting this new project with all of you. And when Casteel is talking about her painting, she says that there's a certain amount of mindfulness that it requires to slow down enough to really feel what it is to be present with someone in a moment. I've always had an inclination towards seeing people who might be easily unseen. And so I think that works on two levels in what we're trying to do here. The first is a very personal one that, at least for me, being in many ways alone here in my home, in my apartment, not being able to leave, it's given me in some ways an opportunity to be very mindful about the time that I normally do get to spend with other people and to appreciate what that's like. And also it's given me the opportunity to create time to mindfully and intentionally engage with people who I might not otherwise stop and spend the time to talk to on a regular basis. And then also I think artistically and educationally on this project that we're embarking upon together, it's about looking slowly at one or two paintings in about 10 minutes. So whereas when you go to a museum, maybe there's 50 highlights you want to see in your hour-long visit, here we're taking out a very specific amount of time to just look very closely, slowly, and meaningfully at one work of art. So I just thought I couldn't resist, really, showing you Casteel's work at the beginning of this project. And so if you were to go and see this painting in a museum, it's far larger than it looks projected here on my wall. And Casteel says that there's an intentionality to the scale of her work, and that everyone is monumental. And so Casteel is working in portraiture, which is something that historically has been relegated to the upper echelons of society, and is bringing it out into the world. So she makes portraits of people who she meets and then develops ongoing relationships with. The subjects of her paintings are incorporated into her life and become a part of the artistic process. So when she decides to make a painting of someone, like she did of Noelle here, who is a graduating senior in her undergraduate art program at Rutgers, she goes and takes hundreds and hundreds of photographs of her subject in the space, and then instead of painting them from life, paints them from those photographs. And so she's going into the world, capturing these regular everyday moments, and then blowing them up to a monumental scale, and saying that these people who she's choosing to represent deserve space on walls of institutions and deserve space in walls in people's homes, and not only a little space in a corner, but huge, huge swaths of wall that have to be cleared out to accommodate these paintings. So in her early career, this was something that she did with figure paintings of Black men, and she would paint Black men, often in the nude, in a wide variety of different colors, to combat negative stereotypes against Black masculinity, and also to show that these bodies are worth displaying in these institutions of art and worth taking up this space. As her career's gone on, she's expanded her work to include women as well. So now let's turn specifically to this painting. So like I said before, this is made from a composite of photographs that Casteel took of Noelle in her home, and it's part of a series of paintings that Casteel made of her graduating seniors, where they all invited Casteel into their own homes and presented their personal spaces and their bodies to her for her artistic representation. So when she's talking about the photographs she takes to make these paintings, she said that the photographs help me not to invent anything, not to make anything up. I'm not imagining or adding language or props or symbology that wasn't already there. So, to a certain degree, the subject of the painting has control over how she is perceived by the viewer. But then Casteel takes these paintings and brings them back into her studio, and even though remaining faithful to the things that are only in the photographs, she's able to render them in any way she chooses. So I think one great example of this is when we look at this Wonder Woman pillow that's in the corner over here. When we compare Wonder Woman with Noelle in the center, we see that Wonder Woman is very flat, her eyes are wide open, and she's staring right at us, but she's also quite small, is behind Noelle's knee over here, and has no arms or legs, and so in effect is powerless. She's a two-dimensional, soft pillow that's relegated to the background behind our primary subject, Noelle, here in the center. And so what this does is it changes, in a certain sense, a narrative about power and about who has power. We have in the corner here Wonder Woman, whose whole ethos is about power and strength, also is tied into a narrative about whiteness, who's relegated to a flat part of the background behind this real, strong black woman, who is in the center, has active agency over the space. Both of them are making direct eye contact with the viewer, but Noelle's is the only eye contact that is real and is actually watching us. Wonder Woman's eyes are so round and exaggerated that they don't give the same sense that they're really watching over and evaluating the things that are happening. So that's one way in which Noelle is able to take things that are actually in the room and depict them in such a way that they bring up new narratives that may not necessarily be inherent in a Wonder Woman pillow that's sitting on someone's bed. Another thing that I want to talk about when we're thinking about this painting is the exhibit that it was displayed in, which was entitled Within Reach. And this is actually the painting that's on the cover of the catalog of that exhibit. And so a lot of these paintings really at their core have to do with relationships. And it's about stepping into a space, encountering another person, taking the time to get to know them, to understand their surrounding, and have a moment of communion with them. And we're going to use that same word that we used yesterday when we were talking about Rothko. Communion. It's about coming together with another person and uniting in a shared experience with them. So in this painting, we have Noelle here at the center who is controlling what's happening. She's making direct eye contact with us, and so we're entering into her space, her bedroom, and there's a sense that she's within reach, to borrow the title of the exhibit. We can stick our hand out and be almost right at her. We have to traverse these blankets and quilts that create these pattern divide between the viewer and the subject, but it's a small divide, and it's something that we're ultimately able to overcome. So the last thing that I want to talk about here is something that I've been assuming the entire time that we've been discussing this painting, but isn't necessarily true. Casteel says of her paintings that over time, she found herself understanding that whether she is painting a figure or not, she is always representing the spaces in which people live. And so, the entire time we've been talking about this painting, I've been referring to Noelle as the subject. But that's in a way misleading, because the subject isn't just Noelle. It's Noelle, but it's Noelle in the space in which she lives. It's in the space in which she chose to present herself to Casteel and by extension to the world. It's also the role that she's playing in relationship to Wonder Woman, or to this poster here in the corner, to her bedspreads and pillows. The entire ensemble comes together and presents one unified image that collectively all the parts are working together to give over a sense of who Noelle is and how she lives. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm very excited to continue to share more amazing works of art like this with you. I would encourage you to go check out Jordan Casteel's website, where you can see many, many more of her paintings. The exhibition catalog from the new museum exhibit is also excellent. I would recommend you check that out as well. And also, one of the great things about talking about contemporary art is that the artists are still alive in many instances. So you can also go and follow her on Instagram and all the other social media places you kids love. Yeah, so be sure to check her out and continue to enjoy more of her work.